Hello, so this is the final for Magical Mystery Tour. My name is Faith Weiner, if you didn't already know, because you've never seen me without a mask. So, what I will be doing is I will be analyzing the characters, or the primary character from every book that we've read this semester and relating each one to a type of chord. So, I will be telling you about the character, what they're like, their characteristics. I'll be touching a little bit on what they did, and I'll also use a quote from every book. And then I will tell you all about the chord. I'm a music major. I love chords. This is so exciting for me. And I'll go into detail about the chord, how it's used, what feels it has to it, and I'll explain how I think it relates to the character that we're talking about for each book. I'll also try not to make this very long, but because your time is valuable and my time is valuable, but I will be doing this in a timely fashion, explain what I need to explain, and I guess time will happen. I'm very sorry if it gets long. Hopefully it will not. And then I will also be playing the chord for you on the piano because my primary instrument is piano, so you'll be able to see what it sounds like, and hopefully when I explain it and then I play it, it'll all kind of come together. So yeah, enjoy. So the first character I will be analyzing is Beowulf from Beowulf, obviously. He's very brave, he's very courageous, he's bold, he's strong, he's compassionate and kind. He's known as the town hero. So in the book, he risks his life for his people. He courageously fought many battles in the name of what's good and what he believes in, and he ultimately dies fighting for what's right. The chord I think relates to him is an augmented chord. So augmented chords have the root, the major third, and the sharp five. The distances between the two intervals make two major thirds. And I'll turn this camera around and show you in a minute here. But augmented chords feel very bold and unique. And so Beowulf reminds me of an augmented chord because he's bold. Everybody seems to hold him to a high standard, and major intervals, like the two in this chord, kind of have the same standard. They are held to this, they're held to this standard of kind of fixing everything and kind of solving the issues, solving the problems. And just like Beowulf. So, and they're also meant to serve a purpose. Like I said, solving problems, being kind of the home base. Just like Beowulf is seen as the fixer, the person who's gonna go out there and fight for what's right, and for his people. So that is why Beowulf reminds me of an augmented chord. So I will play for you this chord. So the augmented chord contains the root. I'm going to use a C augmented. So you have the root, which is C. And then you have the major third, which is E. And then typically the 5 would be G. But you have a sharp 5. So you have the G sharp. So altogether that's... and it gives off a very bold and unique sound, especially with the two major thirds that aren't really found in most other chords. I also have a quote that ties everything all together, and I believe firmly relates Beowulf to this chord. So the quote I have is from the lines 340 to 343. The man whose name was known for courage, the great leader, resolute in his helmet, answered in return, "We are the retainers from a Highlid's band. Beowulf is my name." So the next character I will be analyzing is Joshua from Lamb. So Joshua, also known as Jesus Christ, he's very peaceful, he's very calm, compassionate, he's reliable. He's kind of known to be the stable character as he's navigating his way through life, being the Son of Man. There's a lot of unknowns, a lot of things he's not aware of, and he does a lot of cool stuff. He performs miracles, he develops a lot of followers along the way, and he is altogether amazing. And also biblically, Jesus is known as like the rock, the foundation, known to be very stable, known to really never fail, right? And we kind of see that in the book as well. And ultimately, we know that he dies for the sake of everyone else and then resurrects, but we don't see that in the book. So the chord I'm relating him to was probably the easiest out of all of them to decide. So the chord I'm relating him to is a major chord. So major chords are the most well-known chord. Just like Joshua is very well-known. They're very stable. They are the resolving pitch, the resolving chord typically. When you learn piano or guitar or any instrument, the first thing you're going to learn is a major chord. It's kind of like the foundation of everything you know. And we kind of see that in Joshua, kind of being like the rock for people, being like the one everyone looks to. And that's what a major chord does. Like in a song, if it's in a major key, it's going to go back to the tonic, which is the major chord. C major is the most popular, which I will turn the camera around and show you. So that is why I think Joshua reminds me of a major chord. So the most common major chord, like I mentioned, is the C major chord. So you have the root, the major third, and the perfect fifth. And this really correlates very well because it has the interval of the perfect fifth. And Joshua is obviously known to be perfect and without sin. And so the chord altogether is this, which is very pure, very delicate, and just like Joshua, because he's without sin. And also, like I said, this is the home base. So I'll play it one more time. So the quote I have from Lamb that kind of ties everything together and I think perfectly relates Joshua to the major chord is the quote, "He loved constantly, instantly, spontaneously, without thought or words. That's what he taught me. Love is not something you think about, it's a state in which you dwell." And that was his gift. So the third character that I will be analyzing and relating a chord to is Bilbo Baggins from The Hobbit. So we see Bilbo as like very chill. He loves doing his own thing. He likes feeling safe and comfortable. And we also see him be very selfless and brave as he develops as a character. So he goes to confront Smaug, the dragon. He finds his weakness or his weak spot. He frees the dwarves from spiders after he frees himself. And he also helps lead others on this adventure. He's kind of seen as like more the brains of the group. He's very true to himself. He's very unique. And that's why I'm relating him to a minor chord. So the minor chord is the root, the minor third, and the perfect fifth. So Bilbo kind of, I chose this chord because like Bilbo stays true to himself. We see at the very end how he just goes back to his hobbit hole, safe and sound, like where we saw him at the very beginning, back to his comfort zone. And that's what the perfect fifth kind of adds to a chord or a melody or whatnot. And it's in this chord. And you also have the uniqueness of the minor third. So the minor third is like a half step away from the major third, which makes it sound very unique. In a song, if it's like in a major key, minor chords are going to be used seldomly. They're going to be used at like just the right spot. And they kind of add like uniqueness to the sound. And that is also what the minor third does. So yeah, that's why I think Bilbo reminds me of a minor chord, and I will play the chord for you in a second. So the minor chord, I will play it for you and then I'll explain it. So the minor chord, like I said, so has the root and the perfect fifth. But it also has this minor third, which is a half step away from the major third, which kind of gives it a very unique sound, and adds kind of like a hint of like mysteriousness and flavor to it, as you could say. And it kind of reminds me of Bilbo, just like hearing this chord all together just like reminds me of his like personality and his very like unique aspects to him that we don't see in like some of the other heroes. And we also see the comfort level, and just like the comfort of like the perfect fifth here, like we see in some other chords, that is a perfect representation, in my opinion, of Bilbo, with the little hint of spice. So the quote that I'm going to be using to tie everything together from The Hobbit is this quote. So, victory after all, I suppose. Well, it seems like a very gloomy business. This is like the absolute definition of both Bilbo and the minor chord, because the minor chord is very unique and like it has that perfect fifth, but it does have that minor third that kind of adds a little bit of like gloominess and like uniqueness. And I feel like Bilbo does too, because he is seen as like a hero and he does a lot of great things, but in the end, he still stays true to himself, and he has the aspect of liking to do his own thing, which kind of makes him very unique, just like a minor chord. The fourth character I'm going to be analyzing and relating a chord to is Maddie Ross. Now, with the theme we've seen so far, Maddie is definitely the most unique out of everyone. She's also the first girl. She's a 14-year-old girl in the book, and she's very feisty. She's determined. She's sassy. She does not let anything get in her way. She is very set in her ways. She is like very go for it. I don't care what this is going to get done. So in the book, we see that her father was murdered by a guy named Tom Chaney. Well, after she found out that the law enforcement wasn't going to try to go after him and kill him, that she wanted him dead on her own hands, and right there in the same place, in the same town that her dad was murdered. And so the book is about her going on this adventure to find Tom Chaney and kill him. So she, like I said, she's very determined. And so that's why I'm relating her to a dominant 7 chord. And I talked about this a little to you. So the dominant 7 chord is a major triad with a minor 7. So she definitely has like the base foundation of like justice, of like an eye for an eye, everything being right, like everything being okay again, and her way of doing that is by killing Tom Chaney. And so for me, the major triad, and like in general, is very like stable. It's very strong. It's very strong. And so the major triad represents her foundation of like justice and her sense of like peace and everything being okay again, everything being like even again. And with the dominant 7 chord, you also have the minor 7. And the minor 7 adds a little bit of like oddness to the chord. It doesn't like sound fully finished, and the for me the minor 7 adds that little bit of like evilness to the whole chord, because Maddie's very determined, and she has good intentions, but ultimately her goal is to kill Tom Chaney, which is like, you can have your own opinions on that, but you know what I mean. So adding that minor 7 in the chord perfectly describes Maddie, especially in the book and on her way to kill Tom Chaney. And so that is why I believe the dominant 7 chord perfectly resembles Maddie Ross. So for Maddie Ross, we have the dominant 7 chord. So the dominant 7 chord is the root, the major 3rd, the perfect 5th, and the minor 7th. And all together you have... And so you kind of hear the basis of like the good foundation. Then you're adding the kind of like odd, like unique sound to it. And it kind of gives off the vibe that Maddie gives off to me. Like the kind of good foundation, but also not the most ideal like situation, you know what I mean? So she's awesome, like she's great, she has a great foundation, she's set in her ways, she is sassy, she's feisty, she doesn't let anyone change her. That's the major chord. But when you add this minor 7, you kind of make it, yeah, she has a great foundation of justice, but she wants to kill Tom Chaney, and she wants to kill him herself, and she's not going to let anything get in the way of her literally killing Tom Chaney. So that's why she reminds me of the dominant 7 chord. So for the quote for Maddie Ross, the quote that I think perfectly sums up why she reminds me of a dominant 7 chord is the quote, he will be just as dead that way, you see, and pay for all of his crimes at once, which is from True Grit, page 75. But that really shows like her determination, her will for like justice, but also for it really shows her evil and sassy side, which is why I chose that chord, because it has a 7 in it, minor 7. So the last character I will be analyzing and relating a chord to is Prospero from The Tempest. So Prospero, I would say, is the character we see the most change in out of all of these. So at first, he's very like manipulative, he's cruel, he's like almost evil. He is sneaky. Then he kind of turns and to be very like smart, very human, and actually very like fair and likable as well. So at first he absolutely treats his servant horribly. He has magical capabilities that makes him be able to control what others do. And he even conjures the Tempest itself, which is not good. And but he changes towards the end of the play. So at the end, he actually forgives Ariel, and Ariel is set free. He ends up having genuine love for Miranda. He's able to genuinely forgive his enemies, too, which is really cool. And he changes to be like compassionate, very likable, and very genuine. So the chord I'm going to relate him to is actually is the most interesting, I would say, out of all of them. So the chord I'm relating Prospero to is a diminished chord. So a diminished chord has the root, the minor 3rd, and a flat 5, which makes it like a very ugly sounding, but it wants to resolve to major, which is why I'm using it for Prospero. So, because you have the devilish, like disgusting sound, and it goes to a very happy sound. It's made to pull to a very happy sound. You never finish or start on a diminished chord. It doesn't happen. And I will play that for you now. So, here I will use C again. So for the diminished chord, we have the root, the minor 3rd, and the flat 5, which all together make this sound, which is absolutely disgusting, but it wants to resolve to major, because you have this flat 5 that wants to resolve up a half step to the perfect 5th. And then you have this flat 3, which doesn't necessarily want to resolve to here, but it does sound better as a chord, it wants to resolve to the major, all of the notes being major. And I see this in Prospero because he's very like manipulative, like almost evil, and then he turns to be very nice and genuine, and people like him. And another thing about this chord that's super cool is that it has a tritone. So a tritone is the distance from a 1 to a flat 5. So instead of this, what is a perfect fifth, you're going to have the flat 5. So you have the C to the G flat. And that's known as the devil's interval. It's seriously never used. And which I kind of think is funny because you have Prospero who goes from this to this, which is awesome. The quote that for me brings everything full circle with Maddie Ross and the dominant 7 chord is from Regret, page 75. He will be dead all at once, that way you see, and pay for his... Okay, so we have come to the end of the video. I'm sorry it was longer than I thought it was going to be, but I said what I needed to say. So thanks for letting me do this, and thanks for such a great semester. This was very fun, and I hope I explained everything okay as well.